All right, so one of the major categories of questions that my students got wrong all had to do with this concept that the shortest grammatically correct answer is usually the correct one when you have to revise sentences on the SAT. And that goes back to a few concepts that we taught before, like omitting needless words. If you don't need to say it, then don't. Use the active voice rather than saying, um, Mr. Bailey was annoyed by the student. You could say the student annoyed Mr. Bailey. The other part we talked about was maintaining parallel structure, which means that if you have past tense at the beginning of the sentence and past tense in the middle, there should probably be past tense at the end or whatever kind of structure they had dealt with. But when you're in the heat of battle, basically the best technique I can have you do is if you're not sure, and they give you options, you should read it aloud to yourself as best you can because you're taking a test. You can't be reading things out loud. But if it sounds correct in your head, if it makes sense and it sounds correct, then it's probably the best answer. So we're going to illustrate that with a few questions that we did not do quite well on our test. So I'm going to refer to question 16 here, and I posted here the shortest grammatically correct answer is usually the best. So in this particular case, here's question 16, and here's the passage from whence it came. Jerry's tactics gave birth to a new term. The Boston Gazette poked fun at Jerry's redistricting plan. This newspaper said that the newly created South Essex electoral district resembled a salamander on the map. So now I look at the question, which choice effectively combines the two sentences of the underlined portion? Well, they're telling you that you have to revise the sentence no matter what. And the best thing to do is to go through and read these aloud to yourself and go, which one is the shortest and which one is grammatically correct? Now I'm tempted to lean all the way to C because guess what? It's the shortest. So I'm going to read it out loud to myself. The Boston Gazette poked fun at Jerry's redistricting plan, saying that the newly created South Essex electoral district resembled a salamander on the map. Man, that sounds really good, and it is the shortest, and it is grammatically correct. But if you test the other answers here, uh, redistricting plan, when the paper said that the new, well, it's too long compared to the other one. So even though it's grammatically correct, it's still too long. Similarly, you look at being planned, at which a time the paper said it's doing too much because it's not doesn't get to the point any better or worse. It's just a lot longer. And then same thing is true here. And they said there's no reason to add the and there. You might as well just accept that C is the correct answer because it is the shortest and grammatically correct answer given the situation. It takes me to another question, question 20, that also came with this passage. And similar thing, the only difference is now they're saying it is possible that the one that they have there is correct. So I'm looking at the sentence. Gerrymandering almost always benefits the parties in power, not those out of power, because those are the parties that have the influence necessary to redistrict. When I'm reading that, that sounds like a lot. That sounds like there's too much there anyway. So if I go through and I'm like, well, let's look at the shortest answer first. Gerrymandering almost always benefits the party in power because those are the parties that have influenced the necessary to redistrict. Man, that sounds really good, and it's the shortest. So I look at then benefits the parties in power usually because those once again this right here is unnecessary, so that's too long, and then uh, almost always benefits the parties in power for the good, which actually, if you read the article, you realize that that's factually incorrect. So once again, the best answer for number 20 is C because it gets to the closest, it gets to the point the fastest in the shortest amount of words. And then that brings us to question 34. Question 34 is a similar structured sentence or question here, where like they give you the possibility that the sentence is correct as is, but you have to test it every single time. So looking at question 31, now, however, more attention is paid to the historical quality of the artworks. Some art historians who is writing today even go so far as to say that dirt and grime themselves are. So we're looking at this, that doesn't sound right. So we know that it's not no change. So some art historians who are writing today even go so far as to say that that's plausible. Then we look at C. Um, some art historians whom is writing today even goes so far as, and then D, whom are. Some historians whom are writing today even go so far as. Well, we know that who versus whom in this particular question isn't the thing that we were testing, but in this case, it should be who are, and the correct answer for this one is D. And then last but not least, question 34, and shortest grammatically correct answer. Which choice most effectively combines the sentences? So looking at it, often overlooked in this pantheon of great authors are the contribution of authors in non-traditional modes, period. Specifically overlooked is the genre of science fiction. So they're saying we have to revise this sentence. So I'm going to say, often overlooked in this pantheon of great authors, let's look at the shortest one. So I'm going to look at C first because it's shortest. That's the easiest way to test it. Often overlooked in this pantheon of great authors are the contributions of authors in non-traditional modes, specifically science fiction. Oh, that just rolls off the tongue correctly. That is the best way to go. So I like that answer, um, but you should also test the other ones. But as you look, which notably include, well, that's too many words. And overlooked in particular is, that's even more words that are unneeded, so you can erase that. And then D, the modes in one genre suffering neglect is, once again, too many words. So the correct answer is C, and that just goes back to what we started this particular lesson with omitting needless words. If you don't need them, they shouldn't be in there. Using the active voice, maintaining parallel structure, and then I accidentally taught a lesson about who versus whom in this, but that's an okay thing because that was worth the time. I was going to have to do a video about that anyway, and now it's already completed. So I hope this was informative.